I can't see anything because the light's in my face, so I'm going to just talk to one person out there and read. Thank you. It could write itself, I think, this kind of story. A few stitched together wistful anecdotes, more about the Orient Express, a bit of wandering around Prague or somewhere equally photogenic, some clippings from Google on ballrooms in the Belle Epoque, and it would come out as nostalgic and thin. And I'm not entitled to nostalgia about all that lost wealth and glamour from a century ago, and I'm not interested in thin.
The reason I wanted you to read this passage is because I wanted people to get a sense of the way in which so much of the book seems to be about the importance of touch, the importance of things, the heaviness of things, the fear also that things might become thin.
I want to be able to reach to the handle of the door and turn it and feel it open. I want to walk into each room where this object has lived, to feel the volume of the space, to know what pictures were on the walls, how the light fell from the windows, and I want to know whose hands it's been in and what they felt and thought about it, if they thought about it. I want to know what it's witnessed. It's a manifesto. It's a very...
For what?
It's a simple manifesto. It's a manifesto for things and against things. It's a manifesto for making space to think about tactility, about the world of objects, about how much of the world they displace, about their presence in our lives, and in some way, the resonance in which objects have. But that's one thing. That's the good thing. It's an absolute cry against the danger of nostalgia, the thinness of nostalgia, the make-believe, the fantasy that sort of swirls round the inexact, the melancholic, the untactile. And all this matters because my job is to make things. How objects get handled, used, and handed on is not just a mildly interesting question for me, it's my question. The book is my journey. It's a journey also through it's a journey through objects, and it's a journey through books as objects. Which isn't to say that you don't read them, but the books are objects, but books are things, and so it's a book of passion, about my passion and the passion of the people of my family, to read, to hold, to possess books, and to write them. And so there was this huge problem for me about, as a person, as a writer, on how do I make, not how do I make sense of it, but how do I actually write it? How do I actually sit down and write about what happened? And so that's where I have to do it through touch.
Because touch gives you...
That's my way of doing it. It's my way of doing it. So I wasn't going to write a history of what happened except through this taking apart of a family through the objects which gave them meaning. Because the Anschluss is the first attempt to take away from people their objects, and then you take away their homes, and then you take away their place, and then you take away their story. It all begins there. And so I start my story with them taking away the objects.
The Ephrussi family has been cleansed from the city. It is on this visit that I go to the Jewish archive in Vienna, the one seized by Eichmann to check up on the details of a marriage. I look through a ledger to find Victor, and there's an official red stamp across the first name. It reads, Israel. An edict decreed that all Jews had to take new names. Someone has gone through every single name in the lists of Viennese Jews and stamped them, Israel for the men, Sarah for the women. I am wrong. The family is not erased, but written over, and finally, it is that makes me cry. And I mean, that when I reached that moment,
I have to say, I think that's really unfair.
Unfair.
I mean, here I am. It still makes me cry. I mean, it's yes.
But you wrote the book in
Yes.
some way
Yes.
to ward
Yes.
against that.
Yes. Well, you know what? I don't know what I was doing with this book. I mean, I write this book. I write this book because it's a real attempt in places and archives and museums to work out what is still humming there in the family story. It's trying to make sense of all those silences, all those erasures, all those things which are palimpsests, where a thing has been written over. It's the moment when you get to the file and it's the file you've called up from the archive, and this is the file you need, and you get to the page, and the page has been ripped out in 1938. And that's all that story, which is a story that many, many, many people share, is my story too. But when I write the book, what I'm trying to do at every point is to do it with exactitude. It's to do it.
About to say that
do it because you can't do this story vaguely. You can't make it general and melancholic. You can't. You've got to go back and do it properly.
Is it a burden?
No, I've put the burden down. I mean, the burden, you know what, I've written this book. I mean, I think I've discharged my obligations to my family. I really do.
When you describe Vienna at one particular moment, you say there is something sticky. And that word struck me because in my own family history, with two Viennese parents, one father who turned 93 yesterday. When I turned 18, the one gift I wanted from my father was to go to his Vienna. And we went for a week to his Vienna, and with his index finger, he indicated everything that he knew, and everything he showed me was a trip in absence, because everything he showed was no longer there.
Yes.
And I said to him, but
yes.
What you're showing me isn't there, isn't this very, in some way, depressing? And he said, not at all. I am here, it isn't at all that way for me, because I'm here to tell you the story.
You see, that's just fantastic. That's just fantastic. That's absolutely, and that nails restitution. You see, that nails restitution, because this is it, okay? Because we all want our pictures back, and we're going to get them back. Restitution is about getting the things back we've lost. But you know what? Vienna, we restitute stories to Vienna. Vienna is a shadow of what it was. It's lost all its stories, and so writing our stories and taking them back is restitution in a really, really powerful way, and that is taking control where we can take control. That's a really powerful thing. So your father is right. And sticky.
Sticky.